it, wow.
Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be demonstrating me making a handmade wig. It's going to be a handmade frontal wig, and the hair that I'm going to be using is provided by this wonderful supplier who's provided me with some hair. And right now I'm just testing the lace. And the way you'll know if you have a good lace is if it's very thin, if it's stretchy, and if it's very see-through. That's what you want to look for. Also, you want to make sure the knots are very, very small and undetectable. Of course, you're going to start with bleaching the knots. I already have a tutorial where I show that I'm bleaching the knots. I'm going to attach the link below, but I use a 30 volume developer, and I'm just going to show you guys my own technique, my own trick that I like to do. I like to use a butter knife because it spreads it very evenly and very thin and very flat. You will not go into the lace very hard and very rough. Sometimes the hair might get bleached because you went too deep or there was too much bleach on the lace. Let me tell you, when you use a butter knife, that will not happen. It wouldn't even happen by mistake. I recommend that you guys use this instead of using the coloring mixing brush. When I bleach my knots, I don't bleach the whole entire lace. I really just focus on the hairline because you're using a nude colored cap when you're applying it, as well as using makeup. You don't have to bleach the whole entire frontal. And you're just going to get a piece of plastic bag, whatever the hair came in, and you're just going to flip it over and let it sit until it starts to bleach. There's really no average time. You're just going to have to watch it. When I make my wigs, I use a spandex dome cap, whether it's the breathable mesh kind or it's just your standard dome cap. It really doesn't matter which one you use, it's really your option. You're going to start off by using your T-pins and stretching the cap out at the base of the neck. Once you do that, you can start sewing the tracks on. You would usually sew the frontal on first, but honestly, it really does not matter. Being that my frontal is bleaching right now, I'm just going to take another frontal that I have and place it on there, and I'm going to draw the outline and just begin to sew the tracks on. Whenever you're placing the frontal, you're never going to put the lace, whether it's a frontal or a closure, you're never going to put the lace directly on the cap's line. You're always going to bring it up a little bit, about 1/2 inch. And you're going to start to pin the lace down. Pay attention to how I'm doing it, and I'm going to signal to you guys which will be the correct way and which will be the incorrect way. If your frontal looks like it's shaped like an M, you did it correctly. If the lace looks like it's stretched all the way backwards and it's flat, you did it wrong. And right now, I'm just drawing an outline of where the lace would lay. If you saw my other wig making video when I used the sewing machine, you would know this step. I honestly recommend that you guys learn how to make a wig by hand versus making the wig with the sewing machine. Once again, I want to thank this company for sending me this hair. I only do honest reviews, and I honestly just want to say that this hair is very, very thick. The bundles are thick. The hair is very nice. It's a very nice texture. And if you guys are ready to shop with them, their website is up and running. Let's get to making this wig. Right now, I'm just showing you guys how I tie my knots at the end of my thread when I thread my needles. Once again, like I always say, I want you guys to do what works best for you. I'm just showing you guys how long the bundles are, and that's really a good sign. I say it's a good sign because I always like to double my wefts. Especially when you want to go for a fuller look, it's always best to double your wefts. But when you have very short and small bundles, you really can't have that option. Whenever you're starting or whenever you're ending your bundles on the wig, you're always going to go through the wefts and through the cap. You'll see what I'm talking about the more you pay attention to this video. Whenever you're starting and whenever you're ending, you're always going to go through the cap and through the wefts. Remember that. 2 to 3 times is good enough to go through the wefts and through the cap. Once you went through your wefts and through your cap 2 times, you're going to start to sew the tracks onto the cap. When you're sewing the traps onto the cap, you do not have to go through the wefts to do this process. When I'm sewing, I like to use the under loop method. I really don't know what it's called. I just call it the under loop method because I'm going under and making it a loop. And I just keep the pattern going just like that. I never sew on top. The only time I use my needle on top is when I'm going through the wefts and through the tracks. One myth about wig making is when people say that you should stitch closely together. That's a myth. Whatever pattern that you start with, you want to continue with it. Keep the same pattern, keep the same spaces in between the stitches, and keep the same space between the tracks when you're actually sewing the tracks onto the cap. Your wig does not have to be stitched closely together to be considered a good wig. As long as your stitches are neat, that's all that matters. However, you don't want to make the stitches too far apart, but they don't need to be super close together. That's a myth. Remember when I said to go through the cap and through the tracks 2 times whenever you're ending and beginning. Once you've done that, you're going to cut the track and move on to the next layer. The further apart your tracks are, the more stretchy and durable your wig will be. The closer you put your tracks, it's not going to be that stretchy, and also the wig is going to get super small the closer you sew your tracks together. When you're making a wig with the sewing machine, it's honestly kind of the same as making it by hand, but it's also kind of different. And the reason why I say it's different is because when you're sewing with the sewing machine, you absolutely cannot put those tracks close together. Reason being, your cap is going to shrink. The reason why it's going to shrink is because of the way you're sewing the tracks on there with the certain stitching pattern. I use the zigzag pattern, so let's just say that I put my tracks close together. What's going to happen is the track that I already have on there and the new one that I'm going to be putting on, it's going to start to bring the other track literally right up underneath it. And that's what's going to give you a super small cap, and it's not going to be stretchy, and 9 times out of 10, it's not going to fit. Remember when I said whenever you're ending and whenever you're beginning, you're going to go through that track and through that cap 2 times. Do not forget that step. Another myth about wig making, that you shouldn't cut your tracks. It honestly does not matter if you cut your tracks or not. It's not going to make the hair shed more. It's not going to make the wig last longer. Honestly, cutting your tracks is going to give you a very flat, a very neat, and overall, you want your wig to be flat. You don't want a bumpy, humpy, and lumpy wig. One fun fact about wig making: your lace is replaceable. Your lace is absolutely replaceable. And when I say this, you absolutely have to pay attention. That white line that I drew, whether you are doing a closure wig or a frontal wig, you're never going to sew above that line. And if your frontal was on the wig already, you will not sew on your frontal at all. You will stop directly in front of the frontal. You're going to never sew on the frontal or the lace at all. Reason being is because once your lace gets old, it starts to get patchy and it starts to just look horrible. You can go in and cut that lace off and replace it with a new one. Let's just say this was an old wig and you wanted to put on a new frontal. This process will be exactly the same how you see me putting this lace back on this wig. The motion that I'm signaling to you guys is me showing where your tracks would go from this point on. You're literally going to go from side to side. This hair is very thick. This is only 2 bundles, and this is a lot of hair. I just want to let you guys know that it's not shedding, and it just feels very, very nice. Thank you guys for allowing me to try this hair out. Like I said, if you're ready to shop with them, their website is up and running. If it's easier for you to use T-pins while you're making your wig, if you can't sew it and hold the tracks at the same time, it's okay for you to use a T-pin while you're sewing to hold the track in place. Remember when I told you you're never going to sew on your lace? This is how your tracks should look, separated from your lace. And right now we're going to bring the wig to an end. When you come to an end with the wig, you're going to stop going from side to side. Once you get a small U shape at the top of your wig, you're going to start to go straight across horizontally. That about sums it up for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope by now that you've subscribed and tune in for my next video. Thank you.